Imagine a Sunday. But I don't mean the kind of Sunday where you're, dreading Monday morning emails.
Right, or just trying to catch up on laundry.
Exactly. I want you to picture a Sunday that feels more like a ceremony of living.
That's a heavy phrase, ceremony of living. It sounds very intentional.
It is. But it fits the scene we're stepping into today perfectly. We're going to the Jamaican countryside. And if you've never been, you just have to visualize this specific kind of green. It's lush, almost overwhelming, with these rolling hills dotted with little white churches.
Like sentinels.
Yes, exactly. And there's this specific moment, the service ends, the doors open, and the whole community just pours out.
And it is a transformation, isn't it? That's what really struck me in the source material we have today. People go in one way, maybe tired, burdened by the week, and they emerge just radiant, pressed clothes, unhurried strides. There's a dignity there that, as our source says, they wear like a second garment.
Yes. That specific atmosphere, let's call it Sunday's grace, is what we're unpacking. But we're not just, talking about a vibe or doing a sociology lesson.
No, this is much more specific.
We are doing a deep dive into an oil painting. It's titled Sunday's Grace, Coming from Church by the artist Von Tucker.
And it was created pretty recently, 2019. It's a 30 by 40-inch oil on canvas. And even just looking at the digital scans, it is striking.
And here's the mission for this deep dive. We're not going to do the typical art gallery thing where we, stand back and sip cheap wine.
And say, interesting use of blue.
Exactly. We are going to deconstruct this thing. We actually have Tucker's own guide, The Painter's Path, which is basically the blueprint for how this painting was built from scratch.
It really is an engineering breakdown of art. We're going to look at the mechanics of how you turn a blank, frankly terrifying white canvas into a memory. And I use that word memory very intentionally.
Because that's the twist here, right?
Yeah.
Von Tucker didn't use a photograph.
Not one.
Which is just wild to me. In the age of the iPhone where we document everything, I take pictures of my food, he just went analog. No reference, not even a sketch.
Zero. And that's really where we have to start, this anti-photograph approach.
Let's push on that a little, because from a technical standpoint, painting from memory feels risky. You forget details, you could get proportions wrong. Why choose the harder path?
It is risky, but Tucker argues it's actually more accurate, emotionally accurate. His whole philosophy is that a photograph captures a moment, but memory distills it.
Distills it, okay.
Think about it. You snap a photo of a church on a hill. What do you get? You get the trash can in the corner. You get the power lines buzzing overhead.
The guy in the background sneezing.
Exactly. The accidental details, the noise, the stuff that doesn't actually matter to the experience.
Right.
But when you remember that scene 5 years later, your brain has edited all that junk out. You don't remember the trash can. You remember the quality of the light. You remember the feeling of the heat. Tucker says painting from memory lets him paint the feeling of the day, not just the optics of it.
So he's painting the filter, the human filter.
Precisely. He writes that what remains after years isn't the architectural blueprint of a building, but the feeling of standing in that sunlight. It's an act of subtraction to get to the truth.
That is a very cool concept. So, okay, let's set the scene for the listener. If we're looking at this distilled memory, what are we actually seeing in Sunday's Grace?
We're looking at that lush, rolling Jamaican landscape. There's the white colonial-style church we mentioned, kind of receding into the background on a hill. But the focus, the absolute center of gravity, is a woman.
And the notes are very clear on this. She is not a portrait. She's not Auntie Marie from down the road.
No, she's an archetype. She represents, and this is a quote, every woman who ever stood at the edge of a churchyard path. She's the collective memory.
I love the description of her dress. It says the color is warm amber and orange, and it specifically compares it to a mango at full ripeness.
That's such a visceral description, isn't it? You can almost taste it.
You really can.
And it contrasts so perfectly with the background. You have that burning, ripe orange against all that lush Jamaican green. And her posture, hand on her hip, eyes cast sort of downward or inward.
She isn't looking at us. She's not posing for the viewer.
No, and that's completely deliberate. She isn't performing. She owns her space. Tucker talks about this theme of presence. It's about faith, sure, but not just doctrine. It's faith as a way of moving through the world.
That quiet confidence. She's totally at ease. Okay, so we have the vision, we have the memory. Now I want to get into the weeds. How do you actually build this? Because looking at a finished oil painting can be so intimidating.
It looks like magic, like it just appeared fully formed.
It does. So take us back to step one. You have a spark white, 30 by 40 canvas. What is the absolute first thing Tucker does?
He destroys the white.
Destroys it. That sounds a little dramatic.
Yeah. But it's necessary. Step one is the ground, or the imprimatura. You take a warm color, usually raw umber or burnt sienna, thin it down with some turpentine, and you just wash it over the entire canvas. You turn that bright, cold white into a warm, mid-tone brown.
I've always wondered about that. Why not just paint on the white? It seems like it would make the colors pop more.
You'd think so, but it's actually the opposite. White is cold. It's sterile. If you paint on white and you miss a tiny spot, which you always do, that little white speck just screams at you.
Oh, okay.
It looks unfinished. It breaks the illusion. But if you have a warm brown ground, any little spots you miss just look like shadow or earth. It harmonizes the entire painting from the very first second.
So it's like laying down a bass track in music.
Yeah.
It glues everything together before you even play a single note.
That is a perfect analogy. And once that ground is there, he moves to step two. Blocking in. And this is where beginners tend to panic, but Tucker says you have to be bold, use a big brush, even a palette knife, and you just map out the major shapes.
And the key here is that accuracy isn't the point yet.
Right.
We are not drawing eyelashes.
God, no. It's about real estate. It's about placement. He says the figure has to feel monumental. So you put her right there, centrally and tall. You block in the sky in the top third, the big masses of trees, the church. You're just establishing the composition's skeleton.
Right?
If that skeleton is broken, the painting will never work, no matter how pretty the details are.
Okay, so we've got our brown background, our big abstract shapes. Now we need atmosphere. And anyone who's been to the Caribbean knows the sky there. It just hits different. It's not just blue.
It's so dynamic. Tucker has this great description for it in his notes. He aims for a sky that holds the threat of a shower and the promise of sunlight at once.
That is such a specific mood. High drama. How do you get threat and promise with paint?
Well, you can't just paint a flat blue wall. He uses these loaded strokes of cerulean, cobalt, and white. But here's the trick. He pushes blue-purple, specifically a mix of cobalt, violet, and ultramarine, into the sky. That suggests the moving clouds.
So the threat is in the purple.
The threat is in the turbulence, and the texture here is crucial. He warns against blending.
Why? I feel like blending is what most people think good painting is, making everything smooth, like a photo.
That's the trap. If you blend a sky as smoothness, it looks like plastic, like a car hood. Tucker says you have to keep the strokes alive. You want to see the energy of the brush. You want your eye to mix the colors, not the brush itself. If you leave the strokes distinct, the sky vibrates. It feels like air is actually moving.
Okay, so we have this dramatic, moody, unblended sky. Now, the ground, the foliage, how does he get that deep, lush green of the Jamaican hills? Because green is a notoriously hard color to get right.
It is. It can look so fake, usually because people just use green straight from the tube.
Right.
Tucker builds it. It's all about layering. You don't grab a tube of grass green and smear it on. That looks like a cartoon.
Oh.
He starts with dark underlayers, sap green, burnt umber, deep dark, almost black tones. Then he builds upwards.
Like you're literally building the plants up towards the sun.
Exactly. You work your way up to viridian, then to cadmium yellow-green. And for the very last bits, the sunlit tips, he'll use pure cadmium yellow. And he often uses the palette knife here to cut in light.
Cut in light. That sounds aggressive.
It is. You're basically scraping thick pigment across that dark undergrowth. It creates this physical texture that mimics the chaos of nature. It's not just a picture of leaves. It's a pile of paint that feels like leaves.
So we have the sky, we have the jungle, now the architecture. We said the church is a sentinel, but it's in the background. How do you paint a white church without it overpowering the woman in the orange dress? The eye is always drawn to white, high-contrast areas.
That is the challenge. If you painted it pure titanium white, it would just jump forward and poke you in the eye. It would look like a sticker on the canvas. Tucker's rule is, a white object is never just white.
So what color is it then?
It's all about the light. For the sunlit side, he mixes titanium white with yellow ochre. That warms it up, makes it feel like it's baking in the sun. For the shadowed side, he cools it down white, mixed with cobalt blue and just a touch of purple.
So the church is actually yellow and purple.
On the palette, yes. To your eye, it reads as white in shadow and white in light. And the roof, can't forget the roof, that's cadmium red, deepened with burnt sienna. But the key is to keep it humble. It recedes. It's there to support her, not compete with her.
Which brings us to her, the soul of the painting, step 5 in his process.
And the most critical, If the landscape is great but the figure is stiff, the whole painting fails.
Where do you even begin with a figure like that? Do you start with the eyes, the outline?
You start with the shadow.
Right.
Always. You have to establish the form first. If you start with light, you have nothing to anchor it to. For the skin tones, he'll start with a deep mix of burnt umber, ultramarine, and cadmium red. You paint all the shadow shapes first. Only then do you add the light.
It's like you're sculpting with paint, carving out the volume.
That's it. And then the dress, that cascade of warm oranges. He builds it using vertical strokes.
Why vertical? Does the brush direction matter that much?
A huge amount. It suggests the fall of the fabric, gravity pulling the dress down. If you painted horizontal strokes, she'd look wide or static. Vertical strokes give her height and elegance.
And the face. You said she's an archetype. How much detail does he put in?
Very little. A few marks are enough. He says, and I'm quoting, "Do not overwork the features."
That seems so counterintuitive. We think the face is the most important part. We want to see the expression.
But if you define the face too much, she becomes Mrs. Jones from down the road. She becomes a specific person. By keeping it minimal, the viewer's imagination completes it. She becomes your memory of a woman on a Sunday.
That's so powerful. It actually invites the viewer into the creation process. It's collaborative.
And that leads us to maybe the most technical, but also I think the most poetic part of Tucker's process, the language of shatter.
Wait, lay it on me.
Tucker has a strict rule. Shadows are not black, and they are not gray.
Wait, shadows aren't black. If I walk outside right now and look at my own shadow, it looks pretty black to me.
It looks dark, but it isn't black. Not in the world of painting, and definitely not in the Caribbean sun. In Tucker's work, shadows are color. They're deep purples, cool blues, warm umbers. They carry information.
What's the danger of using black paint?
If you just use black from a tube, you create a hole in the canvas. It looks dead. It just sucks the light in. But if you use, say, a deep purple, you create air and depth. It vibrates.
And he talks about alternating layers to get that vibration right.
Yes, this is a real pro tip. He'll do a pass of cool shadow layers, then let it dry a bit, then come back with warm light layers, back and forth. It stops the painting from looking flat. He says the question isn't, is this accurate, but can I feel it?
Can I feel it?
Mm-hmm.
I like that as a metric. And to get that feeling, he uses a specific tool we mentioned earlier, the knife.
The palette knife, this is where the energy comes from.
So contrast that with the brush for us. When does he reach for the knife instead of the brush?
The brush is for flow. It's subtle. It whispers. The knife shouts. It creates what he calls incident and materiality. It's unpredictable. You can't control a knife perfectly, and that's the whole point.
Give us an example of where he used the knife to shout in this painting.
Well, we mentioned the foliage, but he also uses the sharp edge of the knife to literally draw branches in the wet sky paint. Just scratches right through it. It's almost destructive. And for the ground, that dirt path she's walking on, he uses the flat face of the knife to make these broad, confident sweeps.
So it feels solid.
Yes, like it's been compacted by feet for years. And I read he uses impasto on the dress. Can you define that for us?
Absolutely. Impasto is just an Italian word that means dough or mixture, but in art it means applying very thick paint. He loads the knife with that bright orange yellow and just slathers it on the parts of the dress hit by the sun. So when you look at the painting from the side, the paint literally stands up off the canvas.
The painting has its own topography.
Exactly. It catches the actual light in the room you hang it in. It becomes a physical object, not just an image. It makes the dress feel like it has weight, like real fabric.
Okay, so we've blocked it in, we've layered shadows and lights, we've attacked it with a palette knife. The big question, and I think this applies to any creative work, is how do you know when you're done?
The eternal struggle. The just one more touch syndrome.
Because I feel like I would just fiddle with it forever until I ruined it.
Most people do. Tucker has some very counterintuitive advice here. He says the painting is done not when it's resolved or perfect, but when it begins to live.
When it lives, that's wonderfully vague.
It is, but he clarifies it. He insists on leaving roughness, leaving visible gestures. He wants you to see the hand that made it. If you polish it too much, you kill the energy. You suffocate it.
He has that specific sensory checklist in the notes, doesn't he?
He does. He says it's done when you can almost hear the rustle of the dress, feel the heat rising from the path, and sense the faint echo of a hymn in the air.
Wow. Heat, sound, and atmosphere, none of which are actually visual.
Which brings us full circle, back to the whole memory concept. You can't photograph the heat rising from a path. You can't photograph the sound of a hymn. You can only feel it. And that is what he's painting.
It really changes how you look at a painting like this. You realize every single stroke of orange, every scratch in the sky, was a decision made to evoke a feeling, not just to copy a picture.
And that's why this deep dive is so valuable, I think. It reminds us that art isn't just about technical skill, though Tucker clearly has that in spades. It's about translation.
Translating a human experience, a memory of community and faith, into pigment and oil.
From a blank canvas with a brown wash to this vibrant scene of Jamaican life, it's quite a journey.
And it honors a tradition. That's the why behind it all, this painting says. This way of life, these Sunday mornings, this dignity, it mattered. It was real.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Sunday's grace, I want to leave you, the listener, with a thought. Vaughn Tucker makes that distinction between recognizing a scene and feeling it.
A crucial distinction.
So here's my question for you. What memory do you have that's vivid enough, strong enough, that you could paint the feeling of it without a photograph? What is your Sunday's grace?
That is a question worth sitting with.
Absolutely. Thanks for unpacking this with us. It's been a pleasure.
Always a pleasure.
We'll catch you on the next deep dive.